In a world shrouded in darkness, the shadows are closing in. Craig and Forrest, trapped in a fight for survival, search desperately for their friend, Katlyn. But little do they know, a force more powerful than they could ever imagine is about to awaken. The power of a dragon, but not just any dragon. Will Katlyn embrace her destiny in time to save them all? The battle for the realms begins now. My heart was in my throat. I couldn't see Katlyn. The shadows swallowed her up completely, and nothing Forrest or I did could push past them. I growled in fury, feeling my demon side ready to burst through and attack mindlessly, but that would get us nowhere. I reined it back in. "She's dead," I whispered to myself in numb disbelief. "She's dead." Forrest didn't argue, which made me feel worse. I dragged her into this mess, and now she was dead because of me. The portal was on the other side of the ruins. We had to get past the shadows to reach it, but I couldn't leave, not without knowing for sure if we could save her. We needed to distract the plagued demon, make him leave her be, but I couldn't make out his silhouette anymore. The shadows were too dense. Forrest yelped, and I spun around to see a tendril of shadow wrapped around his legs, dragging him toward the altar.
Craig!
I jumped to try and grab his arm, but another tendril lashed out, pinning my arms to my sides as I collapsed to the ground. They dragged us roughly across the stones. This was it. I was going to die, with the only two people who believed me about the plague spreading, about this world existing. It was over. Everything was over. I blinked and squinted at the ball of shadows. I had to be imagining it. I shook my head, fighting to break free, but I saw it again. The tiniest blip of blue light amongst the darkness. "Forrest!" "What?" he snarled, his dragon still attempting to break free even as the dark magic held him fast. I motioned to the shadowy mass, needing to know if I was finally losing it, or if there was really a blue, pulsing light now. "I see it! Katlyn!" We yelled her name, screaming at the top of our lungs. She was alive! She had to be alive! The pulsing increased, and the brightness grew until it burst through more of the shadow. The plagued spawn snarled in rage, and its shape slowly came back into focus, but the tendrils held us fast. I couldn't see Katlyn, but she was alive. That was her magic, and when I blinked again, I couldn't believe what I saw. A roar ripped across the open plain around the ruins, tearing down the rest of the standing structures. It exploded from deep within the shadowy mass. A being of pure light rose, spinning around, stretching wings far larger than Forrest's had been when we first arrived, and he fought the plagued spawn. The massive dragon flexed those wings, sending a gust of wind that knocked us back to the ground as it lifted higher into the sky. "Katlyn," I whispered in awe at her form. My spirits lifted even as my heart sank. I'd only seen one other dragon like that, and it had been the warrior at the festival. A Darrah. She was a Darrah, and I wasn't the only one who realized it. Blue rivulets of power rippled over her body as she lowered herself back to the ground. Swinging her head wide, she bashed through walls of stone, opening her jaws wide as fire brewed in her chest. It shot from her mouth and struck the spawn and its surrounding shadows, but the flames weren't red and orange. No, these were blue and almost electric in appearance. They crackled like lightning through the air, and the hair on my arms stood on end. The spawn pushed back against the attack, but she easily dodged the shadows, swung her body around, and slammed her tail into him. When she swung back around, she faced me and sniffed the air. She bared her fangs at me, and I stood perfectly still, waiting to see if she would try to kill me too. But then she bobbed her large head, and those green eyes glimmered. She knew exactly who I was, and I thanked the gods for that. Forrest crept beside me, and she growled fiercely at him, but didn't attack. "I will destroy you!" the plagued spawn shrieked, flying back at Katlyn, sending them tumbling out into the field in a tangled mass of shadows and dragon limbs. All I could see was a ball of dragon fury and shadow, but Forrest and I would be idiots to try to break them up. We needed her to hurry and get back through the portal. It wouldn't stay open for long, and as I glanced over my shoulder, I saw it was already shrinking. "Forrest, get the sword!" "Why do you still need it?" "Just grab it." "What are you going to do?" I tilted my head back and forth as I readied to sprint out of the ruins. Something I'm probably going to regret. I took off, running as fast as I could to catch up to Katlyn and the spawn. Katlyn? I waved my arms over my head, but she was too furious to notice me. The shadow tried to surround her again, but she swiped at it with her tail, and when that failed, she threw her head back and unleashed a wild spray of blue fire, dousing the field. Katlyn, damn it, Katlyn, we don't have time for this! I looked around for something to get her attention and picked up a heftily sized rock. Hey! I yelled, chucking the rock at her head. She whipped around, snarling, and snapped her jaws a foot from my face. I stared her down, waiting for her to realize our time in this world was over, and we needed to leave. Now. No, my master, he will have you! The spawn was stalking toward us again, and I staggered backward, tripping over bones in the field. I was about to take off running, but Katlyn scooped me up in one of her clawed feet, her wings spreading wide behind her. We lifted off the ground, crossing the field in seconds. Forrest was right beside the portal, and she reached out with another foot to grab him. She spun in a tight circle, and we sailed through the portal. Then there was falling, and more falling, and then nothing. Ow! I winced as I lifted my head. Where the hell are we? Lie still before you hurt yourself any further. I knew that voice. Mama Lucy? I managed to pry open my eyelids and saw her brow furrowed with worry as she hovered over me. We're back? Yes, thank the goddess, she murmured. What happened? A lot. I pushed myself up, and she let me this time, bustling away to the couch I'd lain on not too long ago. How long were we gone? Barely a day, Forrest answered for her. I shifted my gaze and saw him sitting on the floor, leaning against the far wall, his face pinched in anger. His hands were limp in his lap, and his head lolled to one side too. When I started to smile, he snarled at me. I gave him a weird look. Are you having issues, friend? I'm not your friend, he seethed. This witch paralyzed me. Temporarily, she amended sharply. Serves you right, coming back through that portal and trying to tell me you're taking my girl away from me. Terribly rude, even if you are a damned prince. Katlyn. Wildly, I searched the living room and breathed a sigh of relief to find her on the couch. She was breathing and looked unharmed, except her eyes were closed, and the marks on her body were still visible. They weren't glowing as strongly as they'd been in the ruins, but they were there, pulsing in time with her breathing. How is she? I asked as I stiffly made my way to her side and took her hand. I expected Lucy to shove me away, but she only stared down at Katlyn and shook her head. I don't know yet. That portal opened in the living room, and the three of you burst through it. You were all unconscious. He woke up first, she said, nodding to Forrest. Barely offered me a word of explanation before he demanded I stand aside and let him leave with you both, so perhaps you'd be so kind as to tell me what happened. Are you going to paralyze me if you don't like what I tell you? I asked. Lucy frowned. Depends. Okay then, I said, wondering where to start. Well, let's just say Katlyn definitely knows she's a dragon now. A very unique dragon. She's a traitor, Forrest chimed in, but Lucy snapped her fingers and his voice cut off. He kept trying to talk, but no sound came out, and eventually he gave up, slouching against the wall, content with glaring furiously at us both. Lucy pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. I will not have him tell me what Katlyn is. But is she a Darrah? I asked. She didn't outright tell us. I wish I could say, but she's never told me about her past. But that bracelet, I knew it was old, very old, and I knew one day she would come face to face with who she truly was. I gave Katlyn's hand a gentle squeeze, willing her to open her eyes. She's doing just that. Forrest told me about the Darrahs, told me how they killed them all off. I focused intently on Katlyn's face. All but one. I'll die before I let him drag her away, Lucy stated. He won't be taking her anywhere. I felt Forrest's glare intensify, but I didn't look at him. All that mattered now was Katlyn waking up, and all of us working together to combat what we saw in the burnt world. Lucy said she would make some tea, and then I could tell her all about what happened while we waited for Katlyn to come back to us. The battle is far from over. Katlyn's true power has been revealed, but the darkness still looms. Will she and her friends survive the next challenge, or will the shadows claim their victory? Subscribe now and join the journey to find out. The fate of the Forgotten Realms depends on it.